time at 2 o'clock, the latest news headlines for you. Breaking news from the BBC has learned that the former Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher was actually told a senior Merseyside police officer blamed, quote, drunken Liverpool fans for causing the Hillsborough disaster. Confidential government documents have also revealed more details about the disaster, arguably the worst in sporting history.
The Afghan President Hamid Karzai has called for NATO-led forces to move out of villages. It comes after a US soldier shot dead 16 civilians at the weekend. He's told the US Defense Secretary Leon Panetta that Afghan troops should take the lead for nationwide security from next year. It's also emerged that the Taliban has suspended talks with the US in Qatar.
The Chief Schools Inspector, Sir Michael Wilshaw, has said today England is being overtaken by other leading nations because literacy has stalled. He told the BBC that reading standards have not improved since 2005. Sir Michael has also called for targets for 11-year-olds to be raised.
Authorities in Belgium are preparing to fly home the bodies of 22 children and 6 adults after a coach crash in Switzerland. 2 C-130 Hercules military planes are on standby. Meanwhile, the Belgian cabinet is to hold an emergency meeting today. The coach was carrying 52 people back to Belgium after a skiing trip in Switzerland.
A leading politician in China has been removed as the head of the Communist Party. Wakefield, who is 62, was a strong contender for promotion to party leadership. However, a scandal erupted when his former chief of police spent a day in the United States last month.
The fitness of many police officers could be checked annually, with officers who fail the test failing discipline. The recommendation comes amongst major changes presented to the Home Secretary Theresa May. The report also recommends increasing the minimum educational standards for new officers.
A government advisor has warned that fuel poverty could rise in spite of government measures to eradicate it. The report by Professor John Hill found 7.8 million people could not afford their energy bills in 2009. Professor Hill also predicts the number will increase to 8.5 million by 2016.
And the presenter Sian Williams has presented her final edition of BBC Breakfast after 11 years. As the programme moves north to Media City UK in Salford, she chose not to relocate. Instead, she will join Radio 4 for a revamped Saturday Live, as well as anchoring the main BBC One news bulletins. And that's the latest news just after 2 o'clock. There's plenty more on all our stories online at bbc.co.uk/news.
Now, this year is special for the royal family. There's not another royal wedding, you'll be pleased to know, but a massive party at Buckingham Palace instead. As already, the nation will be gripped by celebrations marking the Queen's Diamond Jubilee.
Yes, Joel, that's right. Pomp and procession will reflect 60 years of Queen Elizabeth II's rule, and to mark it, there will be nationwide celebrations across the UK. In addition, there will be an extended 4-day weekend from Saturday, June the 2nd until Tuesday the 5th. Dev now has a report.
2012, a historic year for the UK, deals with the Queen's Diamond Jubilee celebrations on June the 2nd till June the 5th. And then just under a month later, the London 2012 Olympics kick off. The eyes of the world will be on the English capital, and the plans for the celebrations are in place to mark the Queen's landmark reign. Queen Victoria is the only English monarch to rule past her Diamond Jubilee of 60 years. Queen Victoria's reign lasted 63 years, 11 months. This event is an achievement of great magnitude and will be recognised throughout the globe. Queen Elizabeth II came to the throne on the 6th of February 1952, and her coronation took place on the 2nd of June 1953. She celebrated her Silver Jubilee, 25 years, in 1977, and her Golden Jubilee, 50 years, in 2002. 2012 is going to be a landmark year to be remembered for years to come. Furthermore, the Queen has been head of the Commonwealth for 60 years. This is undeniably an important role which reinforces the links on which the Commonwealth joins people together from around the world. The government promises a nationwide celebration for this phenomenal, momentous achievement by our Queen. This includes an additional Jubilee bank holiday, which will be on Tuesday 5th of June 2012. Moreover, the 2012 late May bank holiday will move to Monday 4th of June 2012. This 4-day weekend comes from the generosity and kindness of our Queen. The Queen's Diamond Jubilee will start just before the Olympics will, setting the tone for the fantastic coming events. On June the 2nd, the Queen will attend the Epsom Derby, a prestigious British horse race. The Jubilee Festival will be celebrated on June the 3rd, the big Jubilee lunch where people will be encouraged to share lunch with neighbours and friends as part of the Diamond Jubilee celebrations. Next, the Diamond Jubilee pageant will take place in the Thames. It will be one of the largest flotillas ever assembled on the river. In addition, Buckingham Palace will be coordinating a programme of spectacular, enjoyable events centred on the extended Jubilee weekend. This will include the Diamond Jubilee concert in front of the Palace on June the 4th. It will be organised by the BBC and bring forth together some of the biggest names in the world of music, dance and musical theatre. Then a memorable British tradition will occur. Over 2,000 beacons will be lit throughout the United Kingdom, commemorating the Diamond Jubilee. Part of the celebration will also include towns in the UK competing city status and existing cities compete for Lord Mayoralty. Lord Mayor is the title of the Mayor of a major city with special recognition. These will be granted by the Queen in her Jubilee year. Furthermore, in London, Greenwich will be granted Royal Borough status in recognition of its historically close links between Greenwich and the monarchy. The main man behind organising these events is former Business Secretary Lord Mandelson. The bank holidays, the Royal Borough and the historic events to come are all his ideas. He planned street parties for the whole nation and for everyone to get involved. He said it would be a truly historic occasion and a testament to the hard work and dedication of the Queen. Would follow Queen Victoria as the only second monarch to celebrate a Diamond Jubilee. The Queen and other members of the royal family, her 3 sons and her daughter, her 8 grandchildren and a great number of cousins or friends close related will send a service of Thanksgiving at St Paul's Cathedral on June the 5th, the last day of the 4-day celebration. Another event will be the distribution of Queen's Jubilee medals. These official medals will be awarded to those of the Armed Forces, the Emergency Services, the Royal Family, living holders of the George Cross and Victoria Cross, and prison services personnel, and all the police community support officers. The medals will be awarded by the Queen herself in the first half of 2012. Also, the Queen's Diamond Jubilee marks a series of visits to the Commonwealth countries, undertaken by members of the Royal Family, in support of Her Majesty. The fitting events that take place in 2012, made by Pete Mandelson, are going to be amazing, but his main message is it will also be an opportunity for us as a country to reflect on the incredible changes that have taken place both here and around the world over the last 6 decades.
Now to the Olympics, coming to town this summer between July the 27th and August the 12th. They make London the first capital city to host the modern Olympics on 3 different occasions. The successful bid was organised by Lord Sebastian Coe, a British Olympic athlete turned politician.
Well, after voting in 2005, London defeated competition from Moscow, New York, Madrid and Paris. This time, like many venues across the country, will be used, but the main park is in Stratford, East London. The game will cost just over £9 billion, as the other Tom now reports.
The Olympics, are they worth it? The public sector has given £9.3 billion in funds to the Olympics already, and by July 2007, 90% of businesses on the Olympic Park area had already been evicted and forced to relocate. One of the poorer elements of London's Olympic bid was the fact that public transport was shocking. Anyone who has experienced London's public transport at the height of rush hour knows that it's a nightmare at best. To respond to this, the government has funded a new Olympic Javelin high-speed rail link. The TfL has also expanded the Overground East Line. Despite the preparation, it was found that the platforms at Stratford International were too low, leading to a temporary platform being erected. Network Rail have estimated that an extra 4,000 journeys will have to be made during the Olympic period. The government have also invested in a £25 million cable car network between the Greenwich Peninsula and the Royal Docks. It is designed to carry 2,500 passengers 50 metres in the air between these 2 locations. With the athletes' travel, the VOA is predicting that 80% will have 20-minute travel times between their accommodation and their event. Boris Johnson has said in response to claims that London's public transport cannot cope as complete and utter nonsense, despite the 3 million extra journeys on the system. The funding system breaks down into the original budget of £5.3 billion compared with the actual budget of £9.3 billion. 63% of funding is coming from central government, 23% from the National Lottery Fund and 13% from the Mayor of London and the London Development Agency. As for Team GB's Olympic hopefuls, here are my top three. Jessica Ennis, a current European former world heptathlete champion. She is appearing in the pentathlon and heptathlon at the Olympics. She's the classic poster girl for the Olympics and a challenge that she relishes. Then there is Mo Farah. He currently holds the European track record for the 10,000 metre, the GB road race title for the same distance, and the GB indoor 3,000 metre. He is our long distance hopeful in the games. Finally, I have included Dwayne Chambers. Dwayne received a 2-year ban from the athletics in 2003 for using THG, a forbidden substance. He has been banned by the BOA for life from the Olympics. However, Britain's fastest man may be set to make a comeback if that decision is overturned in the courts. Dwayne is a highly controversial choice. However, should he be allowed to compete, he is undoubtedly a medal hopeful for Team GB. Hopefully they will be able to earn Great Britain plenty of these at London 2012 Olympic Games.
Now, Kuwait has also become involved in the Olympics next year, with 20 students taking part in the Young Games Makers programme. The boys in Year 11 have split into 2 teams of 10. One will go to the Olympics, the other will head off to the Paralympics. The role is to escort the athletes around the stadium, carrying their kit boxes. However, it will cost a lot of money, £18,000 in total.
Great, the very best of luck to them indeed. Well, one hopeful for the Games next year is Martin Bernard, the high-flying high jumper from Wakefield. He's had a fair few career highlights to treasure. Let's just give you a rundown of some of them now. In 2006, at the AAA Indoor and Outdoor Championships, he actually won gold, whilst winning silver the same year at the Commonwealth Games. At the European Indoor Championships in 2007, he claimed bronze, finishing 9th at the last 2008 Olympics in Beijing. And finally, he won bronze last year in the European Championships in 2010. So as he goes for gold next year, we spoke to him, and you can view that online at bbcschoolreport.weebly.com. We called it Twitter View.
In other news now, we've also been investigating the rising influence of the United Kingdom's Youth Parliament, the UKYP. The youth organisation, formed in 2000, consists of democratically elected representatives aged 11 to 18. It currently consists of around 600 members, each of them voted for by around 50,000 young people each year. The UKYP is mainly funded by the government, and after the actions of former Prime Minister Gordon Brown, the youth organisation holds its annual meeting in the House of Commons. Kareem explains more.
The UK Youth Parliament is a youth organisation in the United Kingdom, consisting of democratically elected members aged between 11 and 18. Formed in 2000, the Parliament now consists of around 600 members, who are elected to represent the views of young people in their area, the government and service providers. Over 500,000 young people vote in the elections each year, which are held in at least 90% of constituencies. It is currently managed by the British Youth Council. Members meet regularly to hold debates and plan campaigns at venues including the British Museum, the House of Lords and the House of Commons. Young people hold important positions throughout the organisation's management, and it has been endorsed by the leaders of all 3 main political parties. Ex-Prime Minister Gordon Brown suggested that members of the UK Youth Parliament could have annual access to the House of Commons chamber in 2007, but this did not come until about March 2009, when a motion was passed to allow the UK Parliament to use the House of Commons for that year's annual meeting. However, a Conservative Member of Parliament objected, which forced a vote to be taken on the issue, also employing a procedure called I Spy Strangers, historically used to expel disruptive spectators, but now mostly to disrupt the House's business, to take business in the House beyond 7 p.m. and stifle any possible debate on the issue. On 12th of March, the second debate was held in the House of Commons, with a vote set to be taken 4 days later. The UK Youth Parliament has now over 600 representatives, 369 seats for elected MYPs, members of Youth Parliament, and over 230 MYPs, all aged 11 to 18. MYPs are usually elected in annual youth elections throughout the UK. Any young person aged 11 to 18 can stand or vote. In the past 2 years, 1 million young people have voted in UK Youth Parliament elections. Once elected, MYPs organise events and projects, run campaigns and influence decision makers on the issues which matter most to young people. All MYPs have the opportunity to meet once a year at the UK Youth Parliament annual sitting. The government funds the UKYP, however it also relies on donations and extra funds to keep it running. Are any of the parties radical enough to solve the economic problem? Regarding comments made by the members of the Youth Parliament, they believe that the Conservatives' tactics are considered extreme by many people. The cuts have been pretty deep, and other than cutting things, there isn't much a government can do. What you have to understand is that the problem can't be solved completely by our government, because it's a global thing. Conservative tactics is actually as radical as you can go without doing damage to the economy rather than helping it. So, to summarise, having a radical government will make little difference to our recovery, because the things affecting us the most at the moment are out of our jurisdiction. This suggests that the Youth Parliament are claiming that the current government are doing the best they can, and believe that the euro crisis was caused by troubled countries such as Greece borrowing and spending too much. Furthermore, based on a poll by the UKYP on their forum, the majority would rather keep the troops in Afghanistan. Not only does this show their ability to listen to decisions made by their members, but they also utilise these views and emulate them in debates. The 5 issues being debated in the House of Commons chamber are: make public transport cheaper, better and accessible for all, no to tuition fees, yes to graduate tax, zero tolerance towards bullying in schools, end child poverty, greener future for Britain. On the 4th of November 2011, members of Youth Parliament will come from across the country to debate and vote at the House of Commons, the most important issue to campaign on in 2012. The organisation has been described by Daily Mail columnist Tom Utley as sublimely fatuous. After MYPs co-signed an open letter with public figures including Davina McCall and Polly Toynbee to the Times. The letter protested against the lack of sufficient sex and relationships education in school, and that the UK Youth Parliament believes that this has led to increasing teenage pregnancy. Utley argues that there is already far too much sex education, and that increasing it would only lead to more underage sex. A study by the University of Colorado found that youth participation organisations in the UK, including the UK Youth Parliament, needed to tackle the unintentional practice of tokenism. The paper concludes that failing to act upon young people's opinions or take them very seriously, once they are identified, is often a cause of frustration amongst participants. A 2004 report commissioned by the Department for Education and Skills was critical of UKYP's relationship with the devolved nations, suggesting that it was acting more as an English Youth Parliament. The report suggested issues with the language for some Welsh representatives, and it was often difficult for MYPs not near to London to get to meetings with government ministers. It has also advocated stronger regional groups and improvements to ensuring engagement with government is followed up later to assess the impact. Despite these criticisms, UKYP is still a thriving force within the country, and are a great sign of what is to come, and maybe our younger generations are in fact not lost.
The city of Wakefield has 2 train stations, Westgate and Kirkgate. Kirkgate was the first station to be built, with Westgate following soon after. However, as a result, Kirkgate has become neglected. In July 2009, the government dubbed the station the worst in Britain. It's also being characterised by rapes and other crimes, so the newspaper Wakefield Express has launched a campaign, as Henry now reports they're also calling the CCTV to be installed at the station immediately.
Wakefield Kirkgate Station was opened in 1847, the first in central Wakefield. Over the years, however, it has been neglected and used less and less since the opening of Wakefield Westgate, the larger rival station. As proof, only 769 tickets were sold in the whole of 2006. Sales of tickets haven't really increased, and the public have often felt a dislike for the unstaffed station. This is widely believed to be due to Lord Adonis's visit in 2009, where he called Kirkgate the worst medium to large station in Britain. To add to this, a rape, 2 serious assaults, one shortly after Lord Adonis's visit, and several muggings have occurred in the station, mostly in the infamous subway. The grim reputation has forced the Grade 2 listed station into staff dismissal, and so made the building deteriorate from low maintenance. As a result, the car was crushed by a collapsing wall, but the driver was elsewhere. The Wakefield Express, a local newspaper, has launched Staff Our Station campaign, as well as refurbishment programmes by a charity called Groundwork. The campaign has had backing from David Cameron, current Prime Minister, and his predecessor, Gordon Brown. However, rail companies like Northern Rail and Network Rail have failed to produce the money to fund the refurbishment of the station by December 2011. A feature in the Wakefield Express covered this story with an account from the rape victim, Jenna Eyre, about her brutal rape and an effort from the rail companies to save the station. This was shortly after her rapist, 35-year-old Romanian Ali Majlat, was detained and jailed. Moreover, the rail companies have been threatened with legal action from Wakefield Council. Thankfully, in response, both Wakefield stations have been given a £1.5 million cash boost from Network Rail in January of this year. With this money and £3.5 million from an environmental charity, Groundwork, new plans were drawn up. Groundwork have been preparing for this day for a long time, and so the plans would be very beneficial to the station, all its visitors and new staff. These plans include raising the roof for the first floor offices, improving and restoring the skylights, and restoring the Victorian-era fascia. Ken Taylor, Groundwork's Executive Director, said in January, the plans will transform the station into a wonderful gateway to the city, somewhere where Wakefield can be proud of and which will attract people, not where they'll feel they'll be subject to some form of crime. This is certainly the hope of Wakefield, but developments have only started recently. Groundwork expects to finish the developments by April 2014, but until then, Wakefield and the surrounding area waits.
Hello, we're now joined by our reporters Kareem and Dev. Dev's going to talk about education and Kareem Syria. So Kareem, why are people angry at Bashar al-Assad?
Well, like many of the Middle Eastern countries, Syria is run by a dictator. Anyone who opposed the regime, or Bashar himself, will have been taken to prison and threatened with torture. Syrian people were used to this kind of treatment. However, when the Tunisians toppled their regime, this gave the Syrians hope that they too would topple their regime.
Well, a year has gone. It doesn't look like the regime will fall. Do you have any idea what's going to happen in the future?
Well, with hundreds of people dying every day, someone will have to take action. Europe or America. With Russia and China vetoing action, this cannot happen. The situation is very complicated, with Syria being allies with Russia and neighbouring Iran. I can't say for sure what will happen, but I do know that thousands of people will die if Bashar isn't stopped.
Well, speaking of Russia and China, why did they veto? What was the purpose behind that?
Well, they were concerned about a civil war starting off, but the civil war has already taken place. People are dying every day, so the Russians are claiming now that they're giving arms to Damascus not to kill demonstrators or peaceful civilians, but to protect the city. I don't think that's right personally, because they're contradicting themselves. If they're not killing civilians, but they're protecting Damascus, I don't know what Lavrov, the Russian minister, is trying to say here, but... Yeah.
That's an interesting point. We just have to wait and see how the situation pans out. So over to you now, Joel.
Okay, well, Dev here to talk more about literacy standards, because Dev, today Michael Bushell has been talking about problems across the country. What's he actually been saying, and what's the problem?
Well, Joel, our country's always been known for being good for education, but now we're falling behind. 1/5 of our kids not reaching the expected literacy level, and being unable to read at the age of 7, it's very hard to catch up. Kids who do not even get a level 4 at year 6 don't even get a C grade at GCSE.
Which is a fail, obviously. How does this affect England? I mean, what are the implications for the country?
Well, so Michael Wilshire did say that too many young adults lack the simple functional skills to make their way in the modern world. Literacy is the heart of our culture as we are in England.
And what's been done about this? What's the solution to the problem?
Well, his speech, its key is about leadership to a good literate. You need a no-excuse culture proposition between both teachers and students. Above all, this means being passionate about high standards of literacy for every single pupil, and creating no-excuses culture for both pupils and staff.
Dev, thank you very much indeed. I'll take a look at the front pages of today's newspapers now, and to discuss them we're joined by Dr. Wimble, one of the teachers here at Craig. Thank you very much for joining us. Let's first of all go to the front page of the Daily Express, talking here about new EU rules wrecking pensions in the UK, talking here about top British firms have given a shock warning to millions of workers. The top story there, pension savers are facing a double whammy of pain because of new European Union rules. One of Britain's top insurers has warned us today. Not good news there if you're expecting a big pension in the future.
We're now going to have a look at First News, a newspaper specifically designed for young people, leading with the story of wild animals we've banned in travelling circuses. This is a new plan for the government, which plans to rehome those animals that have been badly treated in travelling circuses and give them back their welfare.
Let's go to the Metro now, talking about that tragic last message from the doomed trip in which actually the Belgian authorities today are preparing to fly home the bodies of 22 children and 6 adults who were killed in a coach crash in Switzerland. This story talking about the tragic last message from that doomed trip, the picture there of the group. They were off skiing in Switzerland, they're from Belgium, and this was sent, I believe, on Monday. It says tomorrow will be a busy day, and I do not know if I can write a blog posting, but on Wednesday we'll be back, all of us. And obviously that wasn't the case, a very sad story there. And finally to the Eye, because talking here about the US Defence Chief targeted at the British base in Afghanistan. This is the US Defence Secretary Leon Panetta as he arrived at Camp Bastion for his attempted attack, in which a stolen vehicle burst into flames on the runway during his secret Afghan visit after a US soldier shot dead 16 Afghan civilians over the weekend, and as a result he's now been flown out of the country into Kuwait. Let's go in depth to the papers now, and we're going to turn to page 5 and look at the story there at literacy standards across the UK. The headline, too many pupils falling behind in literacy, warns that schools inspector. There is a theory, isn't there, that, you know, compared to other leading countries, Dr. Wimborne, the UK is falling behind?
I think there is, and there's no doubt at all that people, whether your age or my age now, read far less than they used to. Certainly, even 10 years ago, I think we'd see a big difference. And why is this? Why is it that not only young people, but people who are older are reading less now? And there's a whole variety of different reasons, I think, for this. And again, I wouldn't want to reduce it to just one thing, but, you know, it's to do perhaps with the internet, it's to do with games, it's to do with busyness of people's lives now. This is not to blame anyone, but equally I think we do need to think about, well, why is this? And therefore, what can we do about this? And what I want to get away from is the idea that it's either one thing or another thing.
Yeah.
That young people sometimes think, well, I can either have fun, play games, play sport, go outside, be with my mates, or I've got to read a book.
Yeah.
And they think it's got to be one of those two.
Yeah.
And I would suggest it can be both. That actually you can read for pleasure, enjoy reading, and play rugby, and play FIFA, and do whatever you want to do. You can kind of have both.
Yeah. From September, Ofsted are going to be prioritising inspections of schools with the lowest achievement levels in literacy. Is that a good move in your opinion?
So they're going to be doing what?
Prioritising inspection for schools with low levels in literacy. So the schools who have got low levels in literacy will be prioritising over schools that haven't. Is that a good move?
I think so. I mean, I think any attempt to engage with what's going on in terms of literacy might yield some good. But I also think we need to think more widely as a culture about why people don't turn to books the way they used to. Well, what is going on there? What does it perhaps say about our society that people don't feel drawn to works of fiction in the way they used to?
Okay, just one last quick quote here. This is a figure actually saying 1 in 7 British adults, as many as 5 million people actually, lack basic literacy skills, and as many as 1 in 4 haven't got any basic skills in numeracy. That's obviously concerning. As a teacher, where do you think the problem lies? Is it with the education, is it parents at home, or is it just generally society as a whole?
I would say, well, I wouldn't say necessarily first of all it's a problem. I think the moment we turn things into a problem, people start looking for a very quick soundbite answer. So it's either this or this. We get into that kind of mindset again. I would say though, if I had to go for one of those, I would say it's our culture as a whole. It's the kind of society we currently live in which we all lead very busy, often very stressful lives. We're full, we have many activities that engage us, there are many distractions. Reading is simply no longer part of, particularly, young people's lives. It's no longer seen as part of it. And if it is something they engage in, it's something they engage in because they have to, because parents and teachers tell them they have to, in order to meet their targets.
Okay.
I think that's what we need to get away from, reading to reach a target.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on now to the first news access story on the back page there.
Yes, this is a story saying that an NFL investigation has found that players at New Orleans Saints were being paid for injuring opponents. What do you think of that? Does that show the change in the shift of sport, or what is your opinion on that one?
I'm not really sure on this one, to be honest. I mean, it's an interesting story. And I guess the question it raises is, well, has sport changed over the last few decades? Or has it in a way always been around? Is it the case that sport has changed for the worse? I'm not sure it has. I think perhaps, okay, you could argue that maybe things like violence in football matches has perhaps got slightly worse. But actually, again, that's been around for some time. And again, maybe it's pointing more towards our culture and society than specific sports or specific games. Because ultimately, a sport, a public sports event, would always simply be a reflection of the society it's coming from. It'll just tell you about the society, won't it?
I mean, you mentioned football in that. I mean, with the recent racism scandal, are people's role models not doing what they should be doing to encourage children? Are they being not so much role models anymore?
I would say the problem there is turning these people into role models in the first place. And of course, one of the interesting things is, people like Wayne Rooney, David Beckham, all these different footballers, they're not actually people, and John Terry particularly, obviously. These are not people who actually themselves set out to become role models. This is not to excuse some of their behaviour, but they didn't think, I'm going to be a role model for young people. They become that, because we as a culture seem to want that.
Yeah.
We don't want other people as role models. So again, and I know I keep saying this, but it seems to be so important. We need to look wider than this, and we need to think about, well, why are we turning these people into celebrities, particularly sports players? Why do they get paid so much? I think that's not to take away from the talent, their entertainment they bring to people, you know, the joy they bring into people's lives, particularly people that love football. You can't take away from that. Do they deserve that kind of salary?
Yeah.
Should they be role models for young people?
Big question. Let's move on to another story in the in the Metro actually, talking about how junk food may make you utterly naughty. Basically saying that if you eat junk food or even margarine, it can make you angry. Surely, if you have a Big Mac after a long day, that'll make you feel better. What's your opinion on that?
I think this is one of those topics which is certainly pointing to something that is true. There is no doubt at all that diet, I think, affects mood, affects well-being, affects health. But what I think happens sometimes in tabloid articles is they tend to go for, again, the soundbite answer. And this is not just true of tabloids, actually, it's true again of different elements of society. We want a quick fix, we want a quick response. We want to say, this is what's happening, it's just this, and if you do this, it'll go away. And this is not what life is actually like. I don't think we can possibly say that a lot of the problems that young people have are just from their diet.
Yeah.
Diet certainly is a factor in it, there's no doubt about it, but it's used for...
Not the only factor.
It's not the only factor.
Prisons and schools are now being advised to look twice at their menus again. You know, we had the whole Jamie Oliver thing a few years ago when we had the parents chucking the fish fingers over the chips to the kids.
I remember seeing it
at
on the
schools.
news.
That was actually near my area, and ever since that we had the whole overhaul of the diet of children at schools. By doing that again, what will they achieve, do you think?
I don't think there's anything wrong at all with thinking about the food we give to young people. I think that's only ever going to be a good thing. I think that the moment we say this is the answer and we forget about everything else, that's when it becomes problematic.
Is there a danger of overthinking then?
No, I don't think there is. No. I think we should always be rethinking the whole time. I think we should always be approaching things from a fresh perspective. I think the moment you stop thinking, things become stale, they get set. I think we need to keep asking questions about things. You know, how do we bring up young people? How do we enable them to get the best of themselves? How do we look after their health, their well-being? We can't just fix on one thing. So no, I think it is good. But quite ultimately, how much it'll achieve, I'm not sure.
We're now in the Daily Express, and one of the stories is exploring the relationship between, it's titled as Dogs and Ourselves.
The cute story.
Cute story, yeah. But it also mentions cats in there. And what's your viewpoint on this? What do you think about the relationship between us and our pets?
Well, I'm a great animal lover, and I have been my whole life, from very early childhood all the way through to now. And through my childhood, I always had dogs. More recently, I've had a cat. And I switched actually from being, I guess, a dog person to possibly more of a cat person, although I'm probably equally both, to be honest with you. But what interested me about this article was that it's really bigging up the dog and saying cats don't quite do it, saying dogs are really better pets. And I'm not sure that's true. I think it's wonderful this guy is drawing attention to what dogs bring into our lives, or the joy they bring into our lives. But what about cats as well? Cats also bring at least as much of pleasure to their owners. It's different. And I think different pets reveal different aspects of their owners. Different pets are companionable in different ways for us.
I think a lot of this could be based on the fact that you have like house cats and wild cats, but technically all cats are wild.
Yeah, that's right.
But you've got the cats that spend a lot of their time on the streets just roaming free, whereas you don't see that many dogs. With dogs, you're quite close to them.
Dogs are always, they are domesticated animals. But again, it's interesting because even though dogs are domesticated animals, there are certain moments that remind us that actually we're never really quite in control of nature in the way we think we are. So when you hear stories about dogs attacking girls, particularly pit bull terriers or Alsatians, actually do we ever really domesticate our pets? And I don't think we do. But certainly dogs and cats bring a different kind of companionship, but I really value both. I love cats' independence. I love their sense of, sometimes, ability just to do their own thing, but I love the way dogs will accompany you on a walk as well. It's great.
We're going to have to leave it there, but thank you very much indeed for joining
Thank
us
you.
today. Dr. Wimborne there, looking at today's front pages and some of the articles inside.